It's rare that this happens, so we're just gonna move right into it. Our gold medalist and our off the podium play tonight. It is opposite ends of the spectrum. You know what NC State has? Tonight against Duke is a microcosm of the rest of their season. It is a miniature version of the rest of their season. It's wildly unlikely that you're going to win the game, just like it is wildly unlikely that you're going to turn your season into anything of note. But there is the possibility, and if you go out there and you slay the Goliath, things might change. NC State lost to SMU, as we just talked about. They're in serious jeopardy of missing the ACC tournament, which would be catastrophic. To go from winning the ACC tournament last year to not even getting an invite this year would be all-time catastrophic. So I mean, we talk about, and we've had to say it a lot this year because the teams have not been performing well. By any means, throw the kitchen sink at them. Tonight is that night. Tonight is that night. Do whatever you can. Duke is the best team in the ACC, and it's by a distance of significance right there. The advanced analytics will tell you there's a gap there. There is a gap there. And I'm not sure NC State has an obvious, weak. I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Most of the time when a big upset happens, and this would be a big upset, they're 21, 22-point favorites. Most of the time when a big upset happens, in basketball, there's the one player that is kind of the catalyst. Right? I love going back and looking at teams that made who would have saw that coming NCAA tournament runs? And then 10 years later, it's they had a $100 million NBA player on that team. Right? It's remember Butler's teams? They're how are they pulling this off? Gordon Hayward is a legitimate all-star. Wichita State, what an underdog story. Fred VanVleet is still making $40 million a year in the NBA. What was it? Lehigh upsets Duke. It's there's Jay McCollum. There's usually a player where it kind of makes sense once you figure it out. I'm not sure NC State has the player that makes it make sense to pull off a big upset. DJ Burns was really good last year. Looking at this year's team, I don't know if they have the leading scorer there. Matter of fact, it's a way that I think I and many have to stop thinking about this NC State team. For a long time, I was screaming, who is the guy that's going to take over and be their leading scorer? Who is the guy that has main character energy? When the game is on the line and you need a bucket, who are you going to? How are they going to decide? And then when will everybody else begin to trust that person? Now my question, looking at NC State, becomes more of, do they have anyone worthy of being the leading scorer? They might just not have that dude. They might not have that. I mean, I'm not saying they don't have guys that want to score. I just don't know if they have anyone capable of 20 points per game for a significant period of time in the ACC. That's tough. And if you are questioning your offensive identity, which I think they're doing, right? If you question your offensive identity, like I think that program is doing right now, Duke is the last team you want to see. The length, the wingspan, the rotation, the defensive intensity, the system, they're pretty good. And now they apparently have a zone they can go to.
They decided to go ahead. Let's go to the zone defense.
That's a wild move by Scheyer. They apparently hadn't practiced it at all. And against Wake, he felt like they needed a zone, so they went to a 2-3 and it worked. Yeah,
it's funny. He said post game we did it one possession of a game earlier this season. That was about it.
He asked Cooper Flagg at the post game press conference, "Have you ever played zone?" And Cooper was like, "No." Which is crazy, but I guess when you're always the most elite team, because he's always playing with the EYBL super duper AAU teams, you just bombard the opposing team with athleticism, and you never have to go to the 1-3-1 zone that we all had to go to when we were playing the better athletic and bigger teams. It's wild.
Do you think Duke makes the slip up and looks ahead to Carolina on Saturday? That's an easy thing to do. Hey, you got your real big rival coming in this Saturday.
Maybe
Battle of the Blues, all that stuff.
No.
You don't think so?
No, maybe if they didn't have the Wake Forest game. But you were down like multiple scores in the second half a couple days ago. I think that's enough to wake them up. And also, it's one of the differences of this year's team. Last year, I over and over and over again, we would do a ACC cons and cons. What are you most confident in? What are you most concerned about? My concern with Duke all season was the edge, right? The intensity, right? They had all the talent, right? They had future NBA guys. They had length. They had height. They could shooting, like they could do it. But I just looked at it and went, every time there's something going against them, they're whining, they're complaining. That doesn't happen this year. They it's kind of a weird move, but when Cooper Flagg dunks it, he does this weird, like I'm hanging by one hand and his hand is hanging kind of by his thighs. It's a weird move, but it's definitely something that comes with a little bit more aggression. They seem like they want to bury people, which I think is good. That's what you should be trying to do in those situations. You want a fun little tidbit going into this game?
What's that?
I don't know how this came up on my social media feed. I don't follow her, but Con Knipple, the stud 5-star recruit freshman for Duke, his mother on Twitter tweeted, growing up, we would always cheer for State. Since her grandpa, which would be Con Knipple's great-grandpa, since her grandpa, Bud Rose, was the first All-American hooper for the Wolfpack. No longer, she says, let's go Duke. I went and looked it up. The grandpa named Bud Rose was their first All-American honorable mention. Back in the 1931-32 season, NC State got their first All-American nod of any kind from Arthur Bud Rose, which is apparently Con Knipple's great-grandfather.
Wow.
And now he's playing for Duke against State.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Way to turn against family.
I was just going to say, a little legacy. I'm sure State's like, why didn't we tell him that we needed to keep the legacy alive?
Where's that on the recruiting pitch?
Yeah, that's a deep pull, 1931-32 season. But it just adds a little bit of intrigue.
You think State can give him a run of any kind tonight?
My instinct is saying no.
Yeah.
I don't think they have the offensive firepower. I think it would.
Unless they do what Wake did and just make it dirty in a half-court game.
Yeah, I don't think they have the veteran cohesiveness that Wake Forest had to weather some of the storms and kind of keep playing. I'm looking at this at NC State going like, try to score 60. Like let's set some small score 60 and we'll go from there, because Wake didn't even do that, right? Wake came away with 57. So it's NC State's not playing great right now. I don't want to pile on, but this is one that could get away from them if they're not careful.